Hello and welcome to the Deep Three Pod. I am your host for today, Kevin, joined as always by Sam. Matt is once again out this week, unfortunately. He will be back shortly, but yeah. Glad to almost have NBA back. A couple more days. Scrimmages have started now. So, Sam, what's been happening? I feel like you got some heat to vent off,
I know what you're talking about, man. Ladies and gentlemen, I might as well acknowledge it right here, right now. I may or may not have the virus. I tested negative the first time. I wasn't feeling good. I was going to bed like probably 3-4 times a day. Got getting my test this Thursday. Hopefully, we get some good results. Getting some negativity. Just want to get back to work because I'm getting tired of being in a basement. Kind of annoying at this point. But yeah, like you said, we've been watching a lot of scrimmages. At least I was watching yesterday. Am I right? I don't know if you saw the Nuggets game, but Bobo making goals. All right, that man is killing it. All right, this kid, first rookie and only rookie, obviously, in 20 years to register. Was it 15 points, 10 rebounds, 5 blocks in a game? And that's preseason game, I guess to specify. But that's nuts still, okay? Like, that guy's freakishly tall. I don't know if you know his dad, Manute Ball. That guy balled out. That guy shot threes, too. And that guy was, like, 7'6", 7'7". That was nuts. I do fear when Bobo goes for a dunk. I'm scared of his legs, man. Those are just toothpicks at that point. It's some KD level. Get some meat on that kid, all right? Like, but, man,
if
Bobo making goal. That's all I got to say yesterday.
if he can gain like 15 pounds or something like that and just like fill out a little bit with his legs, then I think he'll be golden. But if he stays scrawny as fuck,
Zion got to give them beignets.
yeah, he's gotta learn. I don't know. I think though some of the weirdest news from this week is that KG is trying to basically buy the Timberwolves. Like, there's a bunch of people vying for it. But I don't know, if KG's owner of the Timberwolves, maybe they could actually be competitive for the first time in 15 years.
That's true. Maybe they'll get to the finals and playoffs at this point. Let's be real.
Yeah. Timberwolves just basically as a whole aren't allowed on this podcast as well. Like,
zero respect
except for Jimmy Butler because he's allowed. He's allowed. All right, let's get into it a little bit. Again, since Matt's not here, I'll fill in for his question of the day. So, Sam, what non-playoff team would you want to be a part of, based on this season at least?
That's easy. It's the Cleveland Cavaliers. No, I'm just kidding. That's definitely Cleveland. Cleveland, we will never respect you on this podcast. I'll make this very clear. If you're from Cleveland, I don't care. I just genuinely don't care. It's a horrible city. It's a horrible state. Let's be real at this point. Detroit, absolute garbage. Should I continue? We'll save it for another podcast. All right. Well, let's be real. The team that I'm hyped up for with this next few years, the New York Knicks. All right. This organization is changing for once. James Dolan hasn't sold yet. But he's not afraid to start firing people. Yes, Scott Perry is still there, but everyone else has changed when it comes to GM, VP of operations. They're looking for a new head coach. Hopefully, it's someone that's ready to build this youthful team, right? Along with RJ Barrett, who's had a phenomenal season for a young guy and a potential first overall pick. We know who we want, all right? It's a coast. We had Lonzo in the West. He's gone to New Orleans. Let's bring the true ball brother here, LaMelo, all right? The kid grew like 8 inches in the span of like 2-3 years. That's nuts, okay? And we saw his dunks, okay? The alley-oops he's been doing. Yeah, he played in Australian League, but the kid got his money, and everyone wanted to watch him, right? Who doesn't want to watch the ball brother? New York, this is it. Don't choke. Don't fuck up. Make sure Spike Lee can go through any entrance he wants. Let's not start any racial fights, with Charles Oakley again. Let's just have a good time, all right? Let's make the Knicks great again, all right? Don't vote for me, but let's make the Knicks great again.
Dang. Okay. I think I'm a little different. I think the Knicks is respectable. I think they're close. I think I like another team that's also like just on the cusp of being good. I'm going with the Hawks all day. Trae Young, my boy. I think that team is, they're, again, kind of like the Knicks, where they've been close for a while, being really good. Trae Young is amazing. Now they got Clint Capella too. They're slowly getting one piece at a time that'll actually connect them. And if they can get, I don't know, maybe one other good player, they'd at least be maybe 8th seed contending. And then if they can get into the playoffs one year, then the next year they'll at least, I think they will be able to attract more people too. And then it's just a chain reaction from there. And I think the Red 13, it's not bad, but it's not good either. I mean, it's very just okay. But I think they want to win, and I think Trae Young, of anyone, can carry that team to greatness.
There was a lot of very bold statements in that. First off, you saying this team can be just the first statement. You saying this team can be good. Okay, hold on. It's been 2 years with Trae Young, and I love me some Trae Young. Okay, Trae Young played every game this season. The guy had 30 points a game, which is phenomenal. Okay, don't give me that. He's a pure offensive juggernaut. Defense comes into question just from pure size, and he never played defense. Let's just be real. Second best player, John Collins, someone who is notorious for taking drugs. Drugs, kids, don't be doing that. Okay. You know, marijuana is a different question, but, you know, when you're doing PEDs, you know, your integrity comes into question at that point. Their third best player is the person they traded away, Jabari Parker, okay? And we all know how much we love Jabari Parker with the Bucks. We didn't, okay? Jabari was a complete failure. He cried too much. Next person, DeAndre Hunter, who we have, I think, high hopes for. I guess my question is, who is the player that you could attract or would want to attract? Either or. Which one can you answer that?
I don't know. I think someone like almost like an Eric Bledsoe type, like a defensive, I guess like a two-way person, someone like that can be a little bit of an offensive threat. Not that I don't need like some Steph Curry or some shit, but I want like someone middle ground. Like, okay, he can score, but he can also go on the other end of the court and actually play defense, get steals and things like that. Also, they have Clint Capella. Just saying, you didn't even mention him.
I know. When you watch the recording, and my fans will be like, Sam put his hand up, and I was going to say Clint Capella. But you're right. Totally, Clint Capella is a good piece for this team. I don't know if I agree with Eric Bledsoe just in terms of size, but I definitely agree with two-way. And as soon as you said two-way, the first player that came to mind was Kelly Oubre. I think he'd be a perfect fit for this. Just a great slasher. Like, this team can actually do some real damage. Trae Young, John Collins, Clint Capella, and Kelly Oubre, just from a pure offensive standpoint, because we know Clint Capella is not going to be running the offense. Obviously, he's just a big guy, gets rebounds, plays defense. Be interesting to see if they even like dump Capella. Maybe they even go for like a Rudy Gooby at that point, just play defensive presence to balance out with Trae.
Yeah.
But I don't totally agree. I think what they need is actually someone that can generate offense on their own and not just through Trae Young. And I think a two-way slasher, maybe like a Kelly Oubre or any else is. I don't think you can pick anyone else because they're too good and they don't want to come to Atlanta at that point.
Exactly. That's why I chose Bledsoe, because I feel like he's like pretty middle ground. Like he's a good player, but he's not top tier. He's not an all-star.
No, exactly. Totally agree.
All right. So we got a couple updates this week. Not a whole lot going on as we're getting ready to get into the actual season. So what's been going on?
What's been going on? We're getting some knowledge. Obviously, the big one is the preseason started, which is awesome. Started yesterday, 22nd. I didn't watch every game because I don't think I wanted to, because I was watching that Clippers-Orlando game, and it was so bad. It was just bad. And I know a lot of the players weren't there, like Beverly and Harrell, and they were gone for obvious reasons, for family issues, which is fine. Don't have an issue with that. It felt good just in terms of, hey, we got basketball back and there's something happening. And it's interesting to see the different dynamic on the court too, because even if you looked in the background, right, you saw like the players and coaches, they're sitting like 6 feet apart from each other. Yeah. I don't know if that was just to fill up or was that actually like a COVID reason. I don't know. I think it was actually a good idea, obviously. But I don't know. You might have saw it. I might send it to you about the whole Miami Heat game, how they had the artificial like fan video.
That was really cool.
Yeah, it was cool. And I totally agree with you with your point about how it's like kind of cheesy and it's like kind of a little cringe right there. But I think it was good in terms of like, hey, we can just regenerate that kind of audio also and kind of like fill up the room so it's not just like dead air and just hear shoes squeaking everywhere, players cursing each other out and stuff like that. But like I was saying, like, I mean, I sent you the roster, the starting lineup for the Denver Nuggets. It was just, it's what Philly wanted but could never do successfully. It was just play big man basketball. Like Jokic guard, phenomenal. I don't know if you saw the pass Jokic did, but he killed a man on the Wizards, Ish Smith, just straight up bopped him in the face. The game's gone at that point. But it's good to see that along with that, there were 0 players tested positive, which is awesome. There's still some players coming from Eric Bledsoe. I think he just came today to join the team. We saw Russell come back, and Russell's been looking phenomenal. Right, these guys came ready to play. It'll be interesting to see how these big tier teams, how they bring that, how do you say, like that playoff dynamic back again. Just because, like, a lot of these teams were on a streak, from Lakers, but especially the Bucks. Bucks were winning it. It was a great time for them to rest because I know Giannis was injured and sitting out, so he got a chance to recuperate. But no, it was just really good to see that we're able to have basketball, and I'm hoping that it'll just be for the long term as well. And then just see different ways that they're able to incorporate different sounds or different mechanics just to make sure that we still have the quote unquote like normal experience of basketball, making sure it's not just an awkward experience.
Yeah.
Other news, I know they said that Adam Silver was mentioning that the NBA awards will be based on the season prior to the bubble, which makes sense because it's hard to like make a crazy judgment just based off of 8 games in terms of like a Zion versus Ja, right? We saw the grind that Ja's been doing. It just wouldn't be fair if Zion did have a phenomenal 8 games, it doesn't really recall what his season was due to his injury, right? But I think the big one, obviously, LeBron even made the statement saying he has no issue. He has no issue with them doing it earlier because he knows what he did throughout this season. And honestly, I think it's still up for debate. Like I don't know if it's definitively like a Giannis pick. I don't think it's going to be unanimous. But what do you think? I know we've been talking about it, week after week after week. But now that we know that's based off the previous, 50 games, do you think that it's a bit more definitive for Giannis to win MVP, or do you think there's actually more of a debate at this?
I think for the season that had been played, I think it leans towards Giannis, in my opinion. But again, I agree 100%. I don't think it'll be unanimous. I think you could easily make the argument for LeBron. Like you really could, and you wouldn't have to work that hard. And most people would be like, yeah, like I definitely think he's close. But I think if we're looking at the 50 or 60 games or whatever that was played, I think Giannis has that. Giannis brought the Bucks team to the number 1 seed like it was nothing again, and he just was like, all right, guys, let's go, let's get out of our way. And I think again, LeBron did amazing. He's unbelievable this season, especially like career high in assists per game. I think he's averaging 10.4, I think, or something like that. Insane. Yeah. But again, he has Anthony Davis. He has a pretty good surrounding core of players that have helped a lot throughout the season. And I think Giannis his surrounding team is also good, but I think he's just much more of the driving force behind that team, and for that reason, much more deserving of MVP.
Fine, wine, and dine. Okay, well, let's not count out King James here. The way you describe this Lakers team, hold on. The way you describe this Lakers team as being a solid core, you have Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Alex Caruso, washed up Rondo, no Avery Bradley, Dwight Howard. I agree. Dwight Howard is the 3rd best player on the team. You have a JaVale McGee who's been on-off. Okay, Kyle Kuzma who's also been on-off. Okay, these is like 5 to 7 players that are a little questionable in terms of what you would call. This reminds me of a Cavaliers team, right? A Cavaliers team where, like you say, it's based off the 2-3 people that are the true force of a LeBron team, right? You have LeBron, you have an AD, and let's just say you have a Dwight Howard. I think he would be more in terms of playoff maturity. I think he has that. Then you have the trash. Okay, you just have the trash bags and trash bags and trash bags. But the Bucks team, I think, is different. I think the Bucks team is actually a competent team, especially just being in the East side. I know we talked about this off air, but the East is trash. Okay, like the Wizards shouldn't even be trying at this point. Like, why are they a 9 seed? Nets are trash. Orlando's always trash. Like the Bucks should be at a minimum without Giannis should have been a 6 seed. I think that's doable. Just in terms of they have a playmaker ability in terms of Chris Middleton from a shooter standpoint. They have an Eric Bledsoe who can do something. That's it. He can just do something. If they didn't have Giannis, but they had Malcolm Brogdon, they could easily be a Pacers seed, maybe a 5 or 4 seed. Brooke Lopez, they have the vets to do it. I think the team has a little bit more. It's a little bit more well developed compared to the Lakers, in my opinion. But I think in terms of playoff maturity, obviously the Lakers would have it. So I totally give you that. But yeah, I think I totally agree that Giannis obviously has the advantage, just A, being the number one seed in the East and in the NBA. And the consistency he's had and the growth, really, not even consistency, it's rather just growth. Now he's not afraid to take the shot. And we've been seeing him go into the paint like it's nothing now. Like, this is normal business for him. And it's going to be phenomenal in the playoffs to see what he can do. But, I totally agree. I think Giannis definitely does have leverage. But I don't think we should necessarily knock LeBron for the season that he has done.
No, I totally agree. I think LeBron, his achievements this year should be acknowledged for sure. He's done amazing things, and the fact that he's as old as he is still pumping out insane games and insane stunts is absolutely incredible.
For sure. I mean, basically, you're saying he's the GOAT, right? Anyways, so speaking of GOATs, Jordan Brand, starting next season, will now be putting their brand on their statement jersey. If you played 2K, that's the statement jersey. That's the awesome, unique jerseys that they have for the season. So for someone that's been watching The Last Stand, I know you've been telling me, and especially with that Chicago Bulls Detroit Pistons rivalry, how do we feel if we're Motown right now, having to rep Jordan Brand?
I would be so upset. But I think the thing is, the players now, I don't think like Pistons players now like have any ill will towards Chicago or Jordan, for that matter. But like, I don't know, if I was Isaiah Thomas, I'd be a little salty.
For sure.
or anyone from that like OG '90s Pistons team, I'd be like, all right, we put in so much work, we were so good for so long, and now Pistons have to wear Jordan's emblem on them. I would be bitter. That's for sure.
For sure. I mean, I guess a good way if you're a Pistons player to get rid of it is to just hide it, just like how the Pistons hid after the handshake. Let's be real at this point, okay? Like, just put some black tape over it and we call it a day. Yeah, no, I think it's the ultimate like salt in the wound. If you were active or a former player like still with the organization, I could see it more of a salt in the wound. And Joe Dumars is gone as GM. Bill Laimbeer, I think, is in the WNBA, and obviously Isaiah Thomas is in TNT and stuff like that. So obviously, like you're saying, I mean, Blake Griffin is Jordan Brand player, so obviously he's like, yeah, I'm repping this all day. But no, I mean, definitely interesting to see. I think it's a cool move, especially by Nike, to allow like, hey, let's get all our brands involved and just have them like be sponsored on something like that. So
Yeah.
that'd be pretty really cool to see. But let's be real. Let's get to the bigger news. Something that you've forecasted a little earlier. KG and I think a few other colleagues are potentially bidding for the Timberwolves. And I heard he's doing it feverishly. Like he's really going at this. With their competitors being the Vikings family, if I'm correct. Obviously, billionaires, obviously because they didn't own the Minnesota Vikings at this point. But disregarding that, this is similar to like maybe a Magic Johnson doing a bid for like the Dodgers or something like that. Having players starting to own teams. Do you think that having someone like KG as like a face in terms of this like kind of ownership package be a good move to spark interest back into the T-Wolves? I mean, obviously we've trashed on the T-Wolves week after week after week. I think we always agree that there's always some sort of potential, but it's just so small that the coaches and GMs, they just don't know how to find it. What do you think? Do you think this is a great way for them to get back at it?
Honestly, I hope so. I don't know if it's the actual key that'll actually make them like take that step to being a really good team that we want them to be. Mm-hmm. But I think from my perspective, it looks like it could definitely help. I think KG is a recent enough big player too that he has an understanding of what the NBA has evolved into. And I think a lot of owners don't have that entire concept down. I think Jerry Reinsdorf is a perfect example, like from Bulls Last Dance. Like obviously in the 80s and 90s, like he was a really good owner. Like he made a lot of good decisions. And then I think lately, just the Bulls as an organization has been very slow to evolve to the new NBA and what it is becoming and what it will be. And I think someone like KG, someone like a younger younger player like that could help out a lot in that area.
For sure, yeah. I think it'll be really interesting to get kind of like what you're saying, that someone that's played the game perspective now towards a management side. KG's made a statement saying that he's never wanted to be interested in coaching. That's not his thing. I assume do it in practices with the T-Wolves, but it'd be really interesting to see getting his perspective in terms of how to run an organization or how do you build interest again, right? Because if we all remember, KG with the Timberwolves was like probably one of those guys that you just didn't want to mess with in terms of like, wow, this guy's so good, and like you don't want to say a single word. This guy was trash talking champ right here. So the only guy that could beat him was Tim Duncan because he was just too literal with his trash talk. But no, I think this would be a great opportunity. I think like similar to what LeBron did with the decision, it's another pipeline that can open for former athletes to come together, bring in their funds, and then actually pitch for an ownership stake. Maybe you'll get a Scottie Pippen and Dennis Rodman for some reason. I don't know if that's the combo you want to maybe buy the Bulls, but it'd be interesting to see again that perspective and see how maybe we'll get other former players to be into management roles, either being like VP of operations or GMs or even like just coaches and stuff like that. That'd be really interesting to see.
Yeah.
But this Timberwolves organization, as much as we trash on them, I think they're on a slow path to recovery. Obviously, they still want to focus on Cat being the centerpiece. They did get D'Lo this season from the Warriors, which was, I think, a good piece in terms of how do you keep Cat happy. Let's bring his friends over. Maybe we'll see D-Book in the future. I don't know if that's a great trio, but I think it's a start to see, especially their GM, Rosas, who actually was the assistant GM for Daryl Morey back at the Rockets. So obviously this guy's not afraid of flipping pieces pretty easily to make something weird happen, right? We saw Daryl Morey make small ball, with PJ Tucker, Pancake Lord, at center. Be really interesting to see what they can do. And they have Flip Saunders' son, super young coach, I think like 32, 35. Like, it's really young for a coach. Just trying to get his grounds too with these young guys. And I think they have a great potential to be playoffs. It just sucks that they're in the West. I think this team could be good, really good in the East, but in this West, it's just dog eat dog at this point. So we'll have to see. We'll see how well this team can do. Let's move on to our next segment, all right? The thing I think it's really important to focus off is not just the playoffs, but how this offseason is going to work, just with the timing and everything. It'll be really interesting to see what the biggest moves for some of these NBA teams should be. I made a list of a few of them that are probably on the brink of becoming something different, or at least on the brink of progressing. So let's keep it easy, all right? Let's start with the Brooklyn Nets, all right? Do you feel that this team needs to chase for a third star, or do they just run it back with a healthy KD and Kyrie?
This is the easiest answer for me possible. No, you full stop. Don't even talk about looking for someone else. You got KD and Kyrie, and they both haven't played together. Get out. You stick with them. Wait till they're healthy. See how they do. Then you can figure your shit out. You also have Dinwiddie, Jared Allen, Karis LeVert, and DeAndre Jordan. Get out of here if you want more than that. Then you're just being greedy, dude. If everybody was healthy on the team for a whole season, they'd be a threat. It would be a scary threat. But no one's seen that yet. So I don't know. I think they would be way worse off if they even looked for someone else. I think you just put your blinders on and keep your head down and try and hope for next year.
Hey man, it's hard to keep your head down when Kyrie starts making these comments about specifying which players he wants to run it back with. There was no mention of Joe Harris, no Dinwiddie, no Karis LeVert, no Jared Allen. And I know that we can share a bond that those are the players that are part of the real grind when this Nets were trying to come back and be popular, a paper bag team at this point. So there are rumors, right? Obviously, Bradley Beal is on the market just because he signed a 1-year deal with the Wizards. Let's say, I know you're thinking running it back. Let's answer this question first. If we ran it back, what seed would this Nets team be in the East?
With everyone healthy, is that the question?
Healthy. Yeah.
As it stands, I think at least a 5 seed, if not 4 or 3.
Okay, Kevin, I'm just saying, you went from like this team is a serious threat to a 5 seed. I just want to make this very clear what we're
Dude, five
saying is.
seeds good. What are you talking about?
Okay, look,
Don't even pretend that 5 seeds bad. Look at the 5 seeds right now. Tell
what's
me
the
they're
5 seed?
bad teams.
Yeah, okay, look at. Okay, look, this next team is a 7 seed. Okay, it's just you're saying that they're gonna get 2 seeds better. That means you're saying that they're gonna be worse than
Fine,
Philly,
fine.
worse than Miami.
Four or 3 seed. Well, I think the top 2 seeds in both conferences, like that, you're not gonna get much change there. Like you're not gonna the Nets team as much as they want to be, they're not gonna be a 2 seed. But I think they could be a 3 seed. And okay, worst case they're a 4 seed. Worst case.
Okay, I just want to clarify. I'm just saying when you say serious threat, you're still putting them at a low seed. That's why I just want to clarify. Okay, we're good. Okay, second question. Obviously, with Bradley Beal being in the trade talks and stuff like that, if Bradley Beal were to come, and let's just say they got rid of, obviously you got to trade something of equal value, probably like a Spencer Dinwiddie, possibly a Karis LeVert, or maybe Dinwiddie and a Jared Allen, and you put Bradley Beal into that. Do you think that this threat even goes further for you?
I don't know. I don't think so. I think they're still a threat, but I don't think they go get higher with that. I think I'm almost skeptical of that because then you have Katie, Kyrie, and Beal who aren't all completely selfish, but are definitely selfish in their own ways a little bit, you know?
Sure.
I think Beal's done well because he just has basically John Wall otherwise, and he can work off just him. But if Beal was in a spot with KD and Kyrie as well, I don't think he'd see as much as he would want to. I think he'd just be the like corner 3 guy that they would dish it out to, and then that was it. And I think he wants to be more than that. But I don't think Kyrie or KD are going to let him be that. And then I also think you lose whatever you trade for him. You lose someone who's been loyal to the Nets for a bit. Like if you trade Dinwiddie or if you trade Jared Allen or even LeVert, like you trade someone who has been with you through this grind of like trying to be better, trying like coming from a garbage team basically to some like an actual contender right now.
Yeah.
And I think that just kind of would make a little bad blood in the rest of the team, like anyone else who stays, you know. I don't know. I think that just screws with your team chemistry a lot.
For sure. And I think it definitely agrees with your original point about how this team should just run it back because we never actually saw this team work it out before.
Yeah.
We never saw KD's dynamic. Obviously, you know, when you have 2 unhappy people together, it's always going to create even more unhappiness. I mean, they obviously got their coach fired, who was, I think, Kenny Atkinson was a phenomenal genius, should be the Knicks coach because he knows how to make sure trash teams somehow become good again. Jared Allen, phenomenal. I think we both agree Jared Allen. Like, I think as much as we love DJ, like Jared Allen's the successor at this point. Like, if you had like Jared Allen, I don't want to pick up DeAndre Jordan in free agency. I guess I would say. Obviously, they did it because of KD and Kyrie. I think we also agree Spencer Dinwiddie, phenomenal. He's probably going to want his money, and you know when you allocate all the money to KD, Kyrie, and then DeAndre Jordan, maybe one more star, it's going to be hard to keep him. And Karis LeVert, that guy came back from injury, dropped a 51-point game. I know we keep saying that every time, but that's crazy nuts, pretty nuts for someone that we don't care about, I guess, as often.
Yeah.
And this team has a lot of potential. Even if they ran it back with just D'Lo last season, the team was pretty good. Like I'm not gonna lie, that team was actually like genuinely fun to watch because they're all players that wanted to prove something. The thing with KD and Kyrie is that they're trying to prove something that's not real. Like the thing is, you'll never be number one. I'm sorry to say this. Like LeBron will always be your shadow for both of them. Like it's just that's the story they're a part of. KD will always be number 2. Now he's probably number 3 at this point with Kawhi moving up. And Kyrie, I don't think he'll ever win a championship without a LeBron. I'll be honest. I think that's it for him. He blew so many opportunities with Boston. He wanted to get out, and that was probably your next best chance to winning it. But let's move on to our next one. I think this one will be pretty simple. Chicago Bulls. Are we in or out on Jim Boylen? Guillotine, get him out of here. Okay, nice and simple.
I don't even want to humor to that idea.
Done. Moving on to the next one. Houston Rockets. I'm done. I think we talked about so many times that Jim Boylen is the last piece that has not changed with this organization. GMs changed. They finally changed it, which is amazing. They finally broke through that wall, able to change it. It seems like now you can mention it, Reinsdorf. We can keep saying his name now. Actually open to change. Hopefully that they're able to dump maybe a Zach Levine or a quote unquote potential star to get some actual future assets, or how to keep players happy, like a Lauri Markkinen, something like that.
Yeah.
It'd be really interesting to see how they go with that. But we know the answer, Jim Boylan. We don't want you here. Don't come back. Get out of Chicago. Go coach an Iowa team or something. Just go coach some corn at this point. Yeah, go coach corn. Okay, that's it. Houston Rockets. Obviously, Mike D'Antoni did not sign an extension during the offseason. They couldn't make an actual deal. So currently, this is his last season. He's still open to negotiating, but it seemed like there were some tensions. Do you think that the future of the Rockets relies on Mike D'Antoni being there, or do you think they have to move forward with the system?
I'm honestly torn on this one because I think Mike D'Antoni is a great regular season coach. Honestly, I think he is probably one of the best regular season coaches we have right now. But his, as we've seen time and time again, his strategies kind of fall apart in the playoffs when you have such high caliber teams firing on all cylinders, all wanting to win so badly.
Mm-hmm.
His offensive minded strategies aren't always the most effective. So I think he's a great coach. I really do. I love the D'Antoni Rockets, but is it the right move to keep him? Probably not, to be honest. I don't know.
No, that's fair, because I think prior to this season, Daryl Morey fired an assistant coach without Mike D'Antoni's knowing, and he was actually the defensive mind of it. Because we all know Mike D'Antoni is a pure offensive juggernaut coach. Like, if I had to have anyone just coach a team purely on offense, I'd be like Mike D'Antoni. I won't pick Pop, because that's not how Pop rolls. Pop rolls old school thing. Mike D'Antoni is willing to change things. He made James Harden into a point guard, which is awesome. He was able to do this interesting superstar combo with Chris Paul as well. And now you got, personally, I think it's an upgrade with Russell Westbrook, just from a pure
100%.
Offensive juggernaut. And we've seen this. He's made the Phoenix Suns such a great team. And like you said, Mike D'Antoni will always show up in the regular season, but I've never seen a D'Antoni team succeed in the playoffs. Along those lines, this roster has obviously changed a lot. They dumped Clint Capella, who I think we both are pretty fond of. They actually put going towards small ball with our boy PJ Tucker at center, and they got Rocco in that package now. And I don't know if you saw the first game when Rocco came with the Rockets. He killed it. Okay, he's winning every jump ball, the most aggressive defensive player I've seen. Yes, they're playing small ball. Do you think that this team should invest towards centers again, or do you think running it small is the right way to go?
I think, again, I'm kind of torn on this. This is a tough one. My gut says give small ball a chance. Like, let Rocco and PJ and those guys, like, let them get into their sync and get through the playoffs and see how it goes. Like, if it falls apart, it falls apart. Okay, like, then, it's not great. Then maybe invest in some centers. But I think it really, like, it throws a lot of people off. And I think that's really, really good, especially in the NBA now, where it's pretty, like, formulaic. Like, everyone plays similar styles, except, like, maybe the Spurs, who play, like, old style almost, or like 90s. So I think small ball, throwing that into the mix, it's still an offensive minded team, but it's so different than every other, or than most other offensive minded teams in the league. And I think that is a big advantage to them, just having that, like, almost element of surprise, I guess, and just something that other teams haven't seen much.
For sure. And I think the team that always has trouble with them in the playoffs is the Utah Jazz, right? Just Rudy Gobert can't guard on the three. And, Daryl Morey is obviously known for the system of shoot more threes, right? That's the way to do it. Like, that's the way the game's changed. And I think he's a part of that with Steph Curry about changing the game. Like, make sure every player on the court shoots threes somehow. And we're now seeing that now Giannis has to shoot threes to be a real threat. We saw it last season. The Raptors were able to stop him because he does the same thing. He drives in, and then, Kawhi strips it from him, and that's GG at that point. As much as I'm a Spurs fan, if I had to pick another Texas team to go for, I'd pick the Rockets easily. And I think that's just because James Harden's dominance plus a Russell Westbrook. I kind of hated Russell Westbrook on that OKC team just in terms of how poorly built it was. that team could have succeeded. And this will probably be another podcast, but nice and short. KD, Russell, Harden, Serge Ibaka, prime Serge Ibaka. Okay, but it's Serge Ibaka at that point. And everyone around them never shot the ball. Why didn't you just put shooters around them? You guys could have won the title probably 2-3 straight years, honestly. You guys would have been the most natural franchises to win back to back to back. A real like dynasty similar to like the Warriors.
It's honestly insane to me looking back at that team, knowing what every piece where they are now, and again, like seeing Serge Ibaka in his prime, like how did they not win more? Like how did they not constantly win every finals for like 3 years? Like it blows my mind because if you put them together now and had Serge Ibaka like probably a little younger than he is now, maybe like they would be unstoppable. No one would even.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, that team would have been devastating. Imagine if they were still in Seattle. All right, that would have been awesome.
Oh my God.
It would have been perfect at that point. But I'm rooting for this Rockets team. I think they have interesting potential just in terms of can they actually change the game just playing small ball. But we'll have to see. Let's move into our next one. Let's do Indiana Pacers. Okay, the big question is Oladipo is eligible for an extension. Obviously, he came off from a pretty bad injury. He is going to play. I think the reason he's playing is because there's $3 million on the line for him. Otherwise, he won't get it. If I'm the Pacers, are we signing Oladipo for a long term or are we dumping his ass?
I think I don't think you sign him for a long term. I think you maybe give him a 1 year.
Gotcha.
And see how it goes. Start looking other places. And if he really impresses you next year, great. Like resign him then. I think they've really put a lot of stock into him, and I think they need to start looking elsewhere a little bit. I don't know.
No, for sure. And I think we're maybe low-key pretty impressed by how this Indiana Pacers team came about, with Sabonis playing phenomenal. All-star at this point.
Yeah.
Our boy Miles Turner, I think actually a pretty underrated center at this point. Not a good scorer. That's something he's probably working on. Also, the great addition of Malcolm Brogdon. Like, that was a phenomenal pickup for them, especially as a quote-unquote, like, good replacement. Emphasis on the replacement for Victor Oladipo. The team is and TJ Warren. You know how much I love TJ Warren. All right, TJ Warren, my boy. It's really interesting how this team is able to still get, maybe not progress necessarily, but still get to the same spot year after year after year. Just the same, probably fifth or sixth seed year after year, even with some changing pieces here and there. I totally agree with you. I think Oladipo reminds me of DeMarcus Cousins more in terms of how much I can trust his health. Obviously, if you're a smaller guy, I have a little bit more trust just because you don't have as much weight on you. But I think that's a good point. I think maybe just signing him to a 1 year, give him a good money, maybe like a 1 year, 30 mil, like something that Bradley Beal got. If it doesn't work out, free agency, or you can try to trade him at least through a signing extension, like something like that. Or, I think we enjoy watching these Pacers, but I think we're starting to see that the future with Oladipo is getting slimmer and slimmer, with his injury, obviously. So we'll have to see something with that. We got a few more. Let's do the Clippers, and I want to pick the Clippers in this because Montrezl Harrell is going to be a free agent. Obviously, with COVID and obviously with how the league is going, cap is going to be starting to get reduced. A lot of the money is being allocated towards Kawhi Leonard, Paul George. Are they going to be able to keep Montrezl Harrell? The guy's been playing phenomenal when Kawhi sits out, when Paul George sits out. This guy's carrying the team. He's the league scorer. He's the rebounder, passer. He's everything on this team. But is it really worth signing him if they do not get to a title this season?
I think he is extremely valuable for that team. However, I think if they don't get to the finals, I think it's worth we're taking a really strong look at this team and being like, okay, what do we have to move around? Can we dump Harrell to get some young blood in here? That's way I don't want that because I love Harrell and I think he's perfect on that team. He's the glue that barely holds them together on that team, I think. But I think they could get a good deal for him if they wanted to jump him. And I don't know. I think he just has a really high value, and I don't think they can afford what he should get after this season.
For sure. And we all know that this team is on a ticking time bomb, right? Obviously, they threw away their entire future, hoping that in 2 years that, and don't get me wrong, I know we're counting them out so early, but like we're hoping that this Clippers team was really worth the gamble because at this point you're no different than the Nets throwing away what they threw away 3 first-round picks to the Boston Celtics for washed up KG, washed up Paul Pierce, and Jason Terry. Like obviously, it's not to that extent, and I hope it doesn't go even further with their trades. But they got rid of an amazing Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Was it in total, including with Russell Westbrook in that trade, the Thunder received like almost like 10 first-round picks in the future? Like that team is set for life. The Clippers, they're kind of hanging some washed-up players in terms of like an old Lou Will. Like, don't get me wrong, I love Lou Will, 6-man, but at the end of the day, he's going to be a 6-man. That's all he can do. I don't see him being a carry for this team. Pat Bev, I love his aggression. I love his drive. He's also aging. He's like 31, 32 at this point. Montrez, probably one of the last young to middle vet guys. Now he wants his money. If I'm him, as much as I love LA, I want my money at that point because I know
he deserves it.
Yeah, exactly. And I know that in the future, I'm not going to get this money back again, especially as a big man. And I think an interesting team for him. I don't know if they did because they have Triple J already, but the Memphis Grizzlies, like Montrezl Harrell screams grind, and that's what Memphis grind is all about. With a John Morant, like that'd be perfect. That'd be like the perfect duo to have at that point.
From Ja Alleys to Montrez.
Don't even, man. I'll talk to the agent. We'll see if that happens. I think the last team I want to talk about, the Milwaukee Bucks. And I think the obvious question is, what do you do if Giannis does not sign the extension after the season?
Panic? No, no, I think you did make a good point earlier. I think they do have a lot of good tools at their disposal. And I think, okay, if Giannis doesn't sign, which I think he will, but if he doesn't, then you still have some cap room to get a pretty good player. Maybe not a Giannis level. You're not going to get that, period. But I think you have to accept that and figure out who else you want to build a team around. Whether it's Middleton, you could build a team around them, but then you kind of get into Pacers territory of like building it around Oladipo, and I don't know. I think you got to find your next person to build a team around, and I don't think anyone on that current team you could use as that. I think you got to look elsewhere if Giannis is leaving. I don't know.
Gotcha, for sure. Like you said, I think it's gonna be super surprising if he doesn't sign because this is so much money. Like it's like $250 million. That's a lot, and you're still in a successful team, right? That's what we're seeing, at least for the past 2-3 years. The team has been growing together. They've been running it back, and I think with Mike Budenholzer, obviously, it's been a great addition for them. Chris Middleton getting better. The addition of Eric Bledsoe. They lost Malcolm Brogdon, but obviously they're still the first seed, right? They've been proving their point that Giannis has been carrying this team for the most part. If he were not to sign, I think you're right. They just have to do maybe a sign and trade in the offseason. Maybe not in this season, but the year after his contract expires. Do a sign and trade so that he gets his money, maybe his 5-year contract, and then get whatever you can. Like, where do you even want to send Giannis? Like, it's kind of hard. Maybe you send him to Philly. You get a Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons package just straight up at that point. And I'd be okay if I'm Milwaukee. Questionable if I'm Philly, obviously, but at this point for Milwaukee, you might lose the greatest superstar probably to ever play this game, honestly, at this point.
Probably, yeah.
And you're trying to equate him to like people that can barely get a 6 seed with like Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid. It'll be interesting to see. I think, like you said, I'm not crossing my fingers. He's a hometown kid, but I guess part of me still thinks that I won't be surprised if he goes for the glam life that maybe a Kawhi did or like a LeBron did, because easier marketability obviously, and it's hard to do it for small ball teams. RIP San Antonio Spurs, but we'll be back, don't worry. And I guess with that, let's get to our next segment. Bring out the heat.